So, welcome to my first interview with Mr. César Dezfuli. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And César is a brilliant photojournalist. He's won tons and tons of awards, and he's basically, I regard him as a superhero for all the work that he does. So César, please do tell us about yourself, where you come from, and why the interest in photojournalism.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your interest and for inviting me for these interviews you're starting. It's a pleasure to talk about the subject as important as this one. And well, I'm a photojournalist. It's been about 6 years. I'm working full-time as a freelance photojournalist.
Mm-hmm.
And during these last years, I've been focusing on human rights violations and the subject of migration, mm-hmm. and how these two subjects are interfering with each other. And yep, so this is the work I do.
I think that you're doing such an amazing work, César, because I know that careers such as yours are not easy to get into. And I think the first time I met you virtually was when I saw you talk about the Libyan slavery crisis that happened in the year of 2017. And I'd like to ask you more on that in terms of how has that impacted you in your work and as an individual, seeing people being trafficked across seas and, you know, just not being able to live normal livelihoods.
Well, it is shocking to understand that today, like at this very moment, there is still people who are being trafficked. Like the crisis in Libya was probably on the top. Like it was reaching a level, a terrible level in 2017, 2016, but it didn't finish. I know that there is still people being trafficked, being enslaved inside of Libya. So it's insane to understand that in the 21st century, we are still facing these realities, and that knowing that this is happening, the international community is not reacting on the proper way. And I don't know what is the proper way to do it, but I'm sure there are ways better than how the international community is not taking any action on these facts, and not putting enough focus on it. It's partially because the media are not being able to document this reality as much as probably we would like to, because of the lack of access, because of the dangerous situation that the country is facing, that it's also dangerous for journalists to enter and document and send the message. But even if the information is not arriving to the society through the media, the international community and all the institutions know about this situation, and they are not acting in the right way.
And
how it is affecting me, you were saying.
Yes.
So it's not easy to understand that such a thing is happening. Of course, it has an impact on every one of the persons who have understood and hear these stories. I have been very involved on the subject, and I have met some of the survivors, I will call them, of this reality that they were facing in Libya. And I mean, I chose this work. I believe in the power of photojournalism and journalism to improve the world in which we live. And because of that, I assume these realities as something that I have to understand and face. And of course, it affects me, but it also empowers me to continue working on these subjects.
That's amazing. And I do agree with you in terms of this issue did not receive as much media coverage as it should, and that there weren't a lot of incentives for the victims to be rehabilitated or taken back to their countries. And I guess my next question is that since majority of the victims were young men and boys, do you think that contributes as to how media tells a story between, female victims versus male victims?
Where you're right that the majority was young men, but there was women as well from different countries, but especially from Eritrea. There was a large number of women, full families from Eritrea facing this reality. And it's true that in media, we tend to talk or put more focus on the more vulnerable, let's say, which usually we assume as more vulnerable in these situations, women and children. And I mean, on a way, it catches more attention to the audience when we talk that women and children are suffering in certain contexts, and it's important to put that focus when that happens. But at the same time, if reality is specific majority of people who were young men, we still have to put the focus on them. We still have to say, this is happening, and these young men are suffering. It doesn't matter if they're like 12 years old or 20 years old or 50 years old. Like, nobody should be facing this reality. Nobody should be tortured. Nobody should be slaved. Nobody should be killed just because of, on one side, because of the color of their skin. It was those actions that have been taking place in Libya were partially because of racism, like naturalized racism in that society that assumes Black people as individuals who have rights of being, and that affects women, children, men, and everyone, persons who were suffering in that context.
And since you mentioned the issue of racism as contributing to these victims being trafficked, what other methodologies would you say contribute to victims being trafficked? Would you say that sometimes would victims cross the seas to find better opportunities in Europe and then get trapped in the slavery crisis? Or would you say that there are some cases where victims are being taken to European countries by force?
Well, the situation in Libya was developing along several years. At the beginning, when the war started, and when the war started in Libya, many people were trapped in the country who had been going to Libya to establish themselves in that country, got trapped in a conflict that was not ready to them. So at some point they were on the position of choosing if they wanted to go back to their countries of origin or try to continue a journey that, like a migration journey that they had already started years before. So at the beginning, there was this profile of people who were actually making a living in Libya. Libya was one of the strongest economies in Africa before the war started. And those people were the ones who, let's say, opened the migration road to the European Union. There was already this migration road open by people who were coming to Libya to cross, but it increased in a very large manner when the war started. So at the beginning, it was these people who were trapped in Libya who started to move. It's in that context when the war's abuses started to happen, when there is no government and no institutions in Libya, then there is people who feel that they have the right to do whatever they want, that they're not going to take responsibilities. And it's then when, at the same time that people who were trapped in Libya started to cross the sea, new people started to arrive because they heard that the road was open. So they thought that they could cross and go to the European Union or to Europe. And at the same time, there was still people who didn't know about how bad the situation was in Libya, and they still thought Libya as a place migration processes that were already started. Still, as I was saying, like the first one is that people who were trapped in the conflict, then the people who were arriving to Libya and they got trapped again in that conflict. And then there was the people who were going to Libya because they knew that the road was open, so they could just cross Libya and go to the European Union. But there is one thing across all the three, which is the situation of war and the abuses that are happening, and that affects all of them. At that moment, all these three profiles of migrants who are crossing Libya have to face the same situation, which is the abuses towards them by certain part of the population. I don't want to say that every Libyan has been acting on this way, but one percentage of, like a certain percentage of the society assume as normal mistreating the people who are crossing the country.
Wow.
And as you were asking if they were planning to go to Europe.
Yes.
Not everyone. So it was not the intention of everyone who were in Libya to go to Europe at the beginning, but because of the situation they had to face, they didn't have any option. Like it was either putting themselves in those boats and try to escape the Libyan territory, or maybe die in Libya, or try to go back, but the way back was as risky as so for most of it was not an option. Like the only option was just risking lives, putting themselves in a boat across.
It's very, the more you talk about this issue, the more I feel very sad that, you know, as a global community, this is still happening, and that there are so many people who are desperate for some sort of liberation, whether it's finding a job or it's just providing for family. And this is what the African continent is bringing about, people who are desperate. And I guess my next question to you would be, what do you think could have been done by the global community to intervene in ensuring that human trafficking doesn't happen in the way that it has happened within the case of Libya?
Well, the first thing is that we have to learn, I mean, the international community has to learn once again that such a conflict shouldn't start again. Like the conflict in Libya was provoked because there were certain interests that dismantled a country that was not working probably on the right way, but I mean, no other has the right to go to somewhere else and just destroy completely the institutions, the infrastructures, the way of living, the society, assuming this as normal, as we have assumed this in previous conflicts that have happened in other parts of the world, as in Iraq or in Syria. And that's one of the lessons that has to be learned at some point by the international community. But once the conflict has started, and once we have this situation, there still have been established an area. I don't know if it had to be within the territory of Libya or in a third country or in third countries in general, where the people who were trapped in that conflict and were not part of the conflict could have been transferred and try to make a safe space for them. And that happened. Like the international community, the European Union, were actually paying the same people who were trafficking jails, and once they got to those jails, some of them entered again the circle of human trafficking, because the same people who were rolling those jails were the people that, you know, months before were trafficking with them. And that was proof. Even the people who were later on paid to control the territorial waters of Libya to stop migration were the same ones who before were, trafficking the people and putting them in boats and pushing them toward Europe. So there has to be another way to act, and safety and human rights, like the respect of human rights, and trying to maintain the respect of human rights has to be one of the main things to consider when this situation happens.
Yes. And I
know it wasn't an easy context.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to congratulate you for winning a very award. Would you tell us what the award is, and the photos that you took that granted you that award were very beautiful photos of the young male victims, and they were very empowering and strong. You could actually see the emotions coming through those photos. And can you please do tell us more about the award that you won and the photos that you took as well?
Okay, I think you are. I'm not sure because the project is called Passengers.
Yes.
This is a work I did while I was on a boat in the Central Med. I had to be on one of those NGO boats that were rescuing people in the Mediterranean. Those people who were escaping Libya through the sea. So what I did was to portray all the people who were traveling within the same boat. There were 118 persons who were in one boat. So I photographed them individually. A few minutes after they were rescued from the water, we were still in the middle of the sea. The pictures were taken on board of the boat, of the rescue vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see those background. And the interest of the project, I think, is that I managed to capture a precise moment that a few minutes later will have disappear, and it's that they were still carrying all those emotions and physical affections that they had while they were in Libya. As I was saying, it was just a few minutes after of their rescue, so you can still see those fears that they were carrying, those mixed feelings of being lost and not knowing what is going to happen next, and relief at the same time that they have already escaped the nightmare of being in Libya for so long. Some people spend more than 1 year or 2 years passing from one jail to another. So that's the interest of this project, and as you were saying, it was awarded with residence over the last year since I did it in 2016.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you still keep in touch with some of the victims. The Facebook did let you get through one of the male victims who were trapped. And how are they progressing? Where are they now? And how's life looking up for them?
Yeah, so this is a project that I keep working on. It's an ongoing project. I keep working since 2016 when I met them. From these 118 people, I have already localized 105. Wow. And I have met 65 of them. They are now all over Europe. There is people in Italy, Germany, France, Belgium, Spain. And it's very interesting to see that they all arrived to Europe at the very moment, at the very same moment. But their lives have developed completely different. So you can see how it's very interesting in terms of analyzing migration, to see and understand what makes someone to integrate better than other if they arrive at the same moment. Because there is people who are perfectly integrated. They already have their documents. They already have a house and a job. And one of them, for example, he already has a family. He already has children already. Yes. And then at the same time, there is people who are living in the street. So that's very shocking to see how lives can develop in such a different way. And there is no one answer to say why integration works different from one to another. That's one of the things I have found out. Like, there is no one single and simple
Yes.
answer explain how to make integration work better.
That's
But
true.
of course, the support, the institutional support, has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can see in Germany, for example, that there is an infrastructure, let's say, to help the integration process to happen. Also because they think that that's a way as well to protect their own society. If they help the ones who are coming to integrate, probably they'll make the living with it, the German society, more easy for themselves and for the others. And that's a very intelligent way to work with the integration. But it has to do as well with the way that the person is himself, the way he relates with the local society. Like there is people who are more open and they manage to meet local people, and that helps as well in the integration processes. So
Yes.
it's very interesting to see how this is happening.
Definitely. And I think there needs to be more support, integration support for victims of crimes against humanity, such as human trafficking. And we as a society need to be more accommodative of them as well, to ensure that they are protected, but most importantly, that their human rights are granted no matter which country they set foot in. And I guess this leads to my question about how can human rights organizations play a role? But most importantly, do you see crimes such as human trafficking being eliminated in the future? Do you think that maybe there is a bit of positivity coming out of the fact that many people have now been made aware that crimes such as human trafficking do exist?
Well, I try to be realistic and understand and assume that this is not going to disappear from one day to another. Like, I don't know if it will ever disappear. But what it's true is that we can always do better. Mm-hmm. There are ways to improve the way this is being worked in.
Definitely.
And give me a second.
No problem.
I'm sorry.
No matter what.
Yeah, so I assume that this is not going to disappear, but it is very important that we keep working on improving the way of controlling the situation, of trying to stop it or try to limit it as much as possible. There are certain contexts in which I'm sure we can manage to make it disappear, but it's going to be difficult to make it disappear all over the world because we cannot be everywhere. We cannot. I mean, human rights violations are happening in very different ways all over the world. There are, like, one we have managed to control certain human rights violations. There will be other more, small and specific human rights violations that we will need to take care of in the future. And maybe we are not taking care of them right now. So there will always be work to do in that subject, but we have to do better. We have to keep working. The institutions, the organizations who are working on that directions are doing a great job, and it's very important that they are there. Like the international community and official institutions are not always doing as much effort as they could. It's important that the civil society organize itself and keep working on that direction.
Yes, I agree. And what advice would you give to the youth who would like to work in the field that you're working as a photojournalist? And what would you say is the most important things that they should keep in mind in this particular career that you're in?
Well, the most important is to understand that this is what you want to do. Like in everything you do in life, I think you need to make sure that you love it. You have you understand that you are able and ready to put as much energy as possible on it, because this is something that you believe on, and you will fight for it, and being ready to explore and learn every day, because this is something that you will need to keep exploring every time, to be open to improve ideas, to change ideas, to keep growing yourself, and keep developing, keep pushing, keep believing that there is a better world possible, and we have to keep working on it.
That's awesome. Thank you, César, for your time. You are such an amazing person. Thank you for everything that you do for the global community.
Thank you, too.
Thank you for the help that you've extended to the victims as well. It's individuals such as yourself that keep the world spinning in positive vibes and ensuring that each and every individual is taken care of. So thank you very much as well for everything.
Thank you too as well. Keep working as you do, and I hope we will cross paths at
yes,
some point.
Definitely. Definitely. I look forward to that.
Okay, take care.
Take care, you too.